Looking back now, I think the real mistake was how proud I used to feel about being dependable. Families reward that trait early. You become the calm one, the capable one, the person who can handle things. And after enough years, people stop seeing your help as generosity. It becomes infrastructure. My brother learned that before I did. When he got married, he was barely holding himself together financially. His contract job had ended 3 months before the wedding, and his wife was still finishing school. I paid for their honeymoon because I didn't want them starting married life under pressure. Not luxury. Just a week in Mexico and enough spending money to breathe. Later, when they couldn't make rent, I covered 6 months quietly through direct transfers so they wouldn't have to keep asking. My mother called me a blessing during that period. My brother called me a lifesaver. Funny how temporary those titles are. People rarely stay grateful once survival stops hurting. The baby came 2 years later, a girl. I found out through Instagram before anyone called me. At first, I wasn't offended. Families get chaotic around births. Hospitals are messy. People forget things. Then photos from the celebration started appearing. Backyard decorations matching welcome baby shirts. My parents holding the child. My brother grinning beside his wife while relatives crowded around cake and balloons. Everyone was there except me. I stared at one picture for a long time because my mother looked directly at the camera with the kind of smile people use when they feel complete. I called my brother that evening mostly because confusion still felt easier than hurt. He answered sounding distracted. "Oh, hey, I saw the pictures. Yeah, things got busy." I waited. There's a specific silence people use before disappointing you. I heard it forming already, then he sighed. "Honestly, my wife doesn't really want extra people around right now. Extra people. You know what I mean." I didn't, or maybe I did, and that was worse. We're just trying to keep things comfortable. Comfortable, the word settled badly in my chest. As though my presence carried emotional risk while my money never had. He ended the call quickly after that, said they'd figure something out later. I sat in my apartment kitchen for almost an hour without moving, not furious yet, just embarrassed. Because once you strip away the history, the pattern becomes humiliatingly simple. I kept showing up for people who only reached for me when they were unstable. 3 months later, my brother called again. This time his voice sounded careful, too careful. "We might need a favor." Of course, the apartment they rented had gone up for sale, and they were trying to qualify for a mortgage faster than expected. But his employment history still looked inconsistent, and there were concerns about debt ratios after parental leave expenses. "We just need a temporary cosigner," he said. "Only until things stabilize." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the timing felt surgically precise. I asked when the meeting was. The bank office smelled like stale coffee and carpet cleaner. My brother wore the same expression people wear at hospitals, polite panic hidden beneath optimism. His wife barely looked at me. The loan officer spoke in calm professional sentences while clicking through documents on a monitor. Then came the unmistakable moment. "Based on current ratios," she explained, "approval strength depends significantly on prior guarantor support and co-signing eligibility." She turned toward me naturally after that, not emotionally, administratively. Still, the shift in the room became obvious immediately. My brother straightened in his chair. His wife finally made eye contact. For years, I'd existed in their lives as background reinforcement. Useful, steady, forgettable. Now, an authority figure had unintentionally translated my value into institutional language they couldn't ignore. Without me, the numbers changed. No one spoke for a few seconds. The loan officer continued explaining options, but emotionally, the meeting had already ended. Outside the bank, my brother tried sounding casual. "So, we good?" I looked at him standing there under gray afternoon light, exhausted in ways he probably didn't fully understand himself. A new baby, debt, fear, responsibility. Part of me genuinely pitied him. That complicated everything. Because anger is easier when love disappears completely. "You didn't even want me at your daughter's celebration," I said quietly. His jaw tightened instantly. "That's not the same thing, isn't it?" "That was personal." I nodded slowly. "Exactly. That was the problem." I took 3 days before giving him my answer, not to punish him, to make sure I wasn't helping out of habit. When I finally called, he stayed silent for several seconds after I declined. Then came frustration, then disbelief, then the sentence I think he truly believed. "After everything, you'd let family struggle." I almost reminded him who had defined me as extra. Instead, I just said, "I hope things work out," and meant it mostly. A month later, a baby photo arrived in the mail, no letter, no apology, just a printed picture of my niece asleep against a pale yellow blanket. I left it on the kitchen counter for nearly a week, not displayed, not thrown away. Every morning I'd pass it while making coffee and feel two things at once. Relief that I'd finally stopped carrying relationships alone, and grief that setting boundaries hadn't made me feel stronger, nearly as much as people promise it will.